My name is Julia Hart and I am 31 years old. The day it all began was supposed to be ordinary. A Sunday afternoon, the kind where my mother's roast filled the house with a smell that made you feel safe, like nothing in the world could go wrong. I had just arrived at the family home after work, tired but looking forward to sitting down at the table with everyone. When I walked into the dining room, my father barely looked at me. He was too busy smiling at my sister Leah. She sat there glowing, her hair perfectly curled, her laugh too loud, her eyes darting toward me with that glint I had come to recognize. A glint that meant she was winning at something I didn't even know was a competition. "Julia," my mother said flatly, "Leah was just telling us how well she's doing at the firm. They're thinking about promoting her." Leah beamed, brushing invisible dust from her sleeve. "They're already calling me the face of the department," she said sweetly. "I guess hard work pays off." I pulled out my chair, trying to ignore the familiar sting in my chest. But then my father said it, the words that cracked open the truth I hadn't wanted to see. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" The room went silent. My fork clattered against the plate. I looked up at him, my throat tight. "I work hard too," I whispered. Leah smirked. "Dad doesn't mean anything by it. But let's be honest, Julia, not everyone's cut out for success. Some of us were just born for it." The laughter that followed was casual, almost harmless on the surface, but to me it felt like the floor beneath my feet had given way. For years, Leah had been chipping away at me, undermining me in small, deliberate ways. But now it was clear. She wasn't just trying to outshine me. She was trying to replace me. I sat there in silence, the voices around the table muffled, the weight of betrayal pressing against my chest. For the first time I saw the outline of what she was doing, and worse, how my parents were letting her. When I finally excused myself and walked out into the night air, the cold bit through me. My sister thought she could take everything. My parents thought I was nothing compared to her. But none of them knew the truth I carried. The truth Leah prayed would never come to light. And in that moment, standing on the porch under the fading glow of the porch light, I swore to myself, if Leah wanted my place, she'd have to fight for it. Because I wasn't going to disappear quietly. What Leah didn't know was that I already had proof of the lie her entire perfect life was built on. Hang on, before I tell you what happened next, make sure you've subscribed and left your thoughts in the comments. This part gets intense. Leah and I weren't always enemies. There was a time when she was my shadow, following me around with her pigtails bouncing, asking me to braid her hair or let her borrow my books. We were two sisters sharing a small bedroom, whispering secrets under the covers while the rest of the house slept. Back then I thought we were unshakable. But even in those childhood years, the cracks were already forming, little signs I was too naive to recognize. I was 13 the first time I realized Leah played by different rules. Our mother had asked us both to clean the kitchen. I spent an hour scrubbing counters, stacking dishes, and sweeping the floor. Leah disappeared halfway through, re-emerging just as Mom walked in. She wiped her forehead dramatically and said, "See, Mom? I did all of it." Julia barely helped. Mom looked at the sparkling counters and beamed at her. "That's my responsible girl." I stood there, broom in hand, too stunned to speak. Leah winked at me, a small, sharp smile curling her lips. That was when I learned her secret. If you speak first and speak loudest, people will believe you. And they always did. High school was worse. I studied until my eyes ached, desperate to prove myself, but Leah didn't need to. She was the kind of girl who got A's by flashing a smile at the teacher, who joined every club not because she cared, but because she knew it would look good. When I made the honor roll, my parents gave me a nod. When Leah won Best Personality in the yearbook, they threw her a dinner. It was always like that. My effort versus her charm. When I landed my first internship at a publishing house, I thought, finally, they'll be proud. I rushed home, bursting with excitement, but before I could finish telling them, Leah dropped her news. She'd been offered a junior assistant role at a law firm downtown. "Now that's impressive," my father said, beaming. "That's a real career move." I felt myself shrink right there at the dinner table, my accomplishment fading like smoke. Still, I told myself it didn't matter. I had my own dreams. I didn't need their approval to chase them. But the truth is, it hurt. Every dismissal, every comparison, every time they held Leah up as the golden child, it left a scar. And Leah knew it. She fed off it. One night, years later, when we were both home for the holidays, she cornered me in the kitchen while everyone else was in the living room. "You'll never be me," she whispered, her voice low and sharp. "No matter what you do, Mom and Dad will always see you as second best. So why even try?" Her words sank into me like ice. That was the night I realized Leah didn't just want to shine. She wanted me dimmed. But what Leah never understood was that envy blinds you. She thought she could keep building her perfect little empire on lies, half-truths, and manipulation forever. She didn't know I was watching. She didn't know I was keeping track. And she didn't know that one day, I'd find the kind of truth she couldn't bury. It happened on a night that was supposed to belong to me. I had worked for years toward it. Late nights, rejection after rejection, revising drafts until my fingers cramped. And finally, after all that, I was being recognized. The publishing house where I worked had accepted my manuscript, and they planned to announce it at the annual company gala. My parents were invited, Leah too. I told myself this would be the moment, the first time I'd step out from her shadow. But of course, Leah had other plans. The ballroom sparkled that evening, chandeliers scattering light across polished marble floors. I wore a simple black dress, the kind that gave me confidence without screaming for attention. My parents looked proud as they walked in beside me, but I caught the way their eyes shifted when Leah entered moments later. Her dress a shimmering silver that glittered like she was the star of the show. She made her way through the crowd effortlessly, laughing, shaking hands, introducing herself as if she were the one being honored. When the program began, I sat at our table, nerves buzzing in my chest. The director of the publishing house stepped up to the podium, his voice warm as he spoke about the importance of new voices in literature. My heart pounded. This was it. "And now," he said, smiling, "we'd like to congratulate an exciting new author who has signed with us this year." My breath caught. "Miss Leah Lawson." The room erupted in applause. Froze. My name wasn't on his lips. Hers was. Leah rose gracefully from her chair, flashing a perfect smile as though she had been waiting for this moment all her life. The director held up the cover of a book. My book. The title gleamed under the stage lights, my words printed for everyone to see, except there was no trace of me. Only Leah's name on the cover. The applause grew louder, echoing in my ears, drowning me. I couldn't breathe. "Leah," I whispered, my voice breaking. She glanced at me over her shoulder, her eyes cool, her smile tight. And in that split second I understood. She hadn't just stolen my thunder. She had stolen everything. My manuscript, my voice, my years of work. She had passed it off as her own, and no one had questioned her. My parents clapped proudly, beaming at her as though she had done the impossible. My father leaned toward me and muttered, "See? This is what real success looks like." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My throat burned, my hands shook. I wanted to stand up, to scream, to shout the truth. But the words stuck in my chest, crushed under the weight of humiliation. Leah walked to the podium, her heels clicking against the stage floor. She thanked the publishing house, she thanked our parents, she even thanked me, her inspiration. The audience laughed warmly, believing it was sisterly affection. I wanted to crumble into the floor. When she returned to the table, she leaned down, her perfume cloying, her voice a razor against my ear. "Looks like I win again," she whispered. Something inside me broke. I had thought the favoritism was painful. I had thought her cruel words were unbearable. But this theft of my identity, my dreams, my future, was something else entirely. And as I sat there, frozen in shock, Leah basked in the spotlight. She thought she had silenced me. But she didn't know that betrayal this deep doesn't kill you, forges you. Because that night, as the applause echoed in my ears, I swore Leah would regret ever stealing what was mine. Before we go any further, click subscribe and let me know in the comments. What would you have done in my shoes? I went home that night with my ears still ringing from the applause that didn't belong to her. My hands were trembling as I tore off my dress, collapsing on the edge of my bed with the program booklet still clutched in my fingers. Leah's name printed next to my story burned into my eyes like fire. I didn't sleep. Not a wink. Instead, I replayed everything. The smug glance she gave me, the way my parents clapped for her as though she had achieved something monumental, the way the audience swallowed every word of her lies. Humiliation had a taste. Bitter, metallic, and I could feel it coating my tongue. But beneath it, under all the shame and grief, something else began to stir. Fire. Leah thought I was too timid, too quiet, too forgettable to ever fight back. She thought I'd bow my head, cry myself to sleep, and let her bask in the glow of my work. But she had made one fatal mistake. She underestimated the very person who had given her everything she ever used to win. Began to plan. First, I needed proof. I spent the following weeks gathering every draft, every email, every scribbled note I'd ever made on that manuscript. I had them all, dated, annotated, undeniable evidence that the story was mine. But evidence wasn't enough. People believed Leah because she was confident, charming, the daughter my parents held up like a trophy. If I was going to expose her, I couldn't just hand over proof. I had to make the world watch her crumble. So I studied her. I watched the way she spoke in interviews after the gala, her false humility, her practiced lines. She stumbled when asked specifics about the story, details I knew she didn't understand because she hadn't lived them. She recited the words but lacked the soul. And I knew then that the perfect moment to strike would be when she was most exposed. Her official book launch. I circled the date on my calendar like it was a countdown to war. But it wasn't just about exposing her lie. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Small, powerless, unseen. I wanted her to stand under the lights and feel them scorch instead of warm. Every night I refined my plan. I gathered witnesses. Friends who had read my drafts years before, professors who had critiqued my early chapters, colleagues who remembered me carrying those heavy notebooks everywhere. Quietly, I contacted them, asking if they would stand by me when the time came. And they agreed. They had seen my work, my obsession, my tears over every sentence. They knew. Meanwhile, I kept my head down around Leah. I smiled when she bragged about the upcoming event. Nodded when she asked if I'd be there. She didn't notice the way my hands clenched behind my back. She didn't see the storm forming behind my calm. My parents, of course, were thrilled. "Isn't it wonderful what Leah's accomplished?" my mother gushed over Sunday dinner. My father raised his glass to toast her, his eyes full of pride. And I, their ordinary daughter, kept quiet, biting my tongue until it bled. Because silence, I realized, wasn't weakness. It was strategy. I would let Leah build her tower of lies higher and higher, let her believe she was untouchable. And then, at the very peak of her glory, I would knock it all down. What Leah didn't know was that by the time she stepped on stage at her book launch, I would be waiting, with every piece of truth she feared most, ready to burn her empire to the ground. Before we move on, take a second to hit subscribe and drop a comment. I'd love to hear what you think so far. The night of Leah's book launch arrived like the opening of a play she thought she was starring in. The venue was glamorous. A high-ceilinged ballroom lined with banners bearing her smiling face and the book title in gold. Guests filed and dressed in glitter and silk, clinking glasses of champagne, their chatter buzzing with anticipation. I sat near the back, calm in a way that surprised me. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind too many times to count. Tonight wasn't hers. Tonight was mine. Leah took the stage wearing a red dress that caught the light like fire. She beamed, soaking up every ounce of attention. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice dripping with confidence. "This story is the culmination of years of hard work, dedication, and passion. It means the world to finally share it with you." Applause roared, and she basked in it. My parents sat in the front row, their faces glowing with pride, eyes locked on her as though she hung the moon. I rose slowly, holding a leather folder against my chest. People turned as I walked down the aisle. My heels clicked against the polished floor, steady, deliberate, cutting through the noise. When I reached the microphone at the edge of the stage, I didn't ask permission. I simply took it. "Funny," I said, my voice clear, carrying through the room. "Because that's not your story to tell." The crowd hushed instantly. Leah froze, her smile twitching. "What are you doing?" she hissed into the mic, her polished composure cracking at the edges. I opened the folder and lifted the first draft of the manuscript, its pages worn and annotated, my handwriting covering every margin. "This story isn't hers," I said, my voice unwavering. "It's mine." Every word, every scene, every sleepless night spent pouring my soul onto the page. It was me. She stole it. Gasps rippled through the room. Phones came out recording. My parents exchanged confused glances, but I didn't look at them. This wasn't about their disbelief anymore. This was about truth. Leah's laugh was shaky, forced. "She's delusional," she said to the audience. "She's always been jealous." But before she could finish, I motioned to the side of the room. One by one, my witnesses stepped forward. My old professor, who confirmed the story had been submitted years ago in my name. A friend from college, holding a printed email I had sent with early chapters attached. Even a coworker, who recalled editing pieces with me during lunch breaks. Each voice added weight. Each piece of evidence another stone crushing the fragile facade Leah had built. By the time I turned back to her, Leah's face had lost all color. Her hands trembled on the podium. The audience that once adored her now whispered, eyes darting between us, judgment sharp and unforgiving. "You thought I'd stay quiet," I said softly, leaning into the microphone so only she and the world watching could hear. "But silence doesn't protect liars. Tonight, everyone knows exactly who you are." The room erupted, not in applause this time but in chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Guests murmured in shock. And Leah, my sister who had stolen everything, stood frozen in the glare of the spotlight, exposed and undone. I didn't wait for her to respond. I gathered my folder, stepped down from the stage, and walked out of the ballroom. My heels struck the floor like a drumbeat, steady and certain. Outside, the cool night air hit my skin, and for the first time in years I felt light, free. In the weeks that followed, Leah's world collapsed. Her publisher pulled the book, citing fraud. Invitations vanished. Interviews dried up. Her name, once whispered with admiration, became synonymous with betrayal. Even my parents, who had always held her high above me, couldn't look at her without shame. As for me, I finally told my story the way it was meant to be told, under my own name in my own words. And when it was published, it wasn't just a book. It was proof. Proof that I was never the forgettable sister. Leah had tried to take my place in the family, in the world, in the story of my own life. But in the end, it was her lies that destroyed her, and my truth that set me free. And when I stood on a stage months later, my book in hand, the applause ringing out for me this time, I thought of her sitting somewhere in the shadows, forced to watch me shine with a truth she could never touch. I'd taken everything back. And she was left with nothing but the wreckage of her own betrayal.